Some Israelites question the authenticity of the Saturday Sabbath and are seeking desperately to determine when the Sabbath really is. And some have turned to a lunar Sabbath. These people believe that the light that rules the night also rules the Sabbath. This video will cover 3 problems with the lunar Sabbath. Problem number 1, it didn't start that way. The original Sabbath began after creation and was kept by Yah himself. He did not calculate it by the moon, since the moon had just been created on the 4th day. And he didn't calculate it by man, who had just been created on the 6th day. Yah calculated the Sabbath by counting how many days he had been working. And once he knew that he had been working 6 days, he rested. It's that simple, and the moon had nothing to do with it. Problem number 2. If you follow a lunar Sabbath, then you make the Feast of Weeks impossible. This is because when you celebrate a lunar Sabbath, you end up with 1 week having extra days as you wait for the next new moon to appear. Now, some will call those worship days and say not to count them, but there is no scripture to substantiate this. Yah counts all the days in every week, and we know this because in Leviticus 23, Yah tells the children of Israel to count 7 weeks from the day after they offer the sheaf of the heave offering, and then the day after the last day of the 7th week will be day 50. Yah counted all the days, and according to his calculations, 7 weeks of 7 days plus 1 equals 50. No extra days were added. So if Yah counts from Sabbath to Sabbath for 7 weeks, and he counts 7 days per week, then so should we. Problem number 3. 3 scriptures are misunderstood or taken out of context. The first misunderstood scripture is Genesis 1:14. This scripture says that the sun and the moon were to divide the day from the night, and to be for signs and for seasons, and for days and for years. And so the correct way to understand this scripture is that we can use the sun to count the days of the week, and thereby count 6 days of work, and figure out when Sabbath is or rest day. Remember, the sun rules the day, so it makes perfect sense to use it to count days. This scripture does not prove that Sabbath must be calculated by months. Sabbath is not like the other feast days. This is why it is first listed separately in Leviticus 23, 1-3 from the seasonal feasts. The seasonal feasts are calculated differently using months, but not the Sabbath. The second misunderstood scripture is Psalm 104, verse 19, where it says that Yah appointed moons for seasons. The sun knows his going down. So because they assume that Sabbath is a seasonal feast, they assume that the moon has been appointed to count when it occurs. This is a false assumption because the Sabbath is not a seasonal feast. Although the Hebrew word moed is used to describe seasons and also used to describe feasts, it does not mean that all moed are determined by the moon. And here's proof. In Exodus 9:5, it says, Yah appointed a set time, or a moed, saying, tomorrow Yah shall do this thing in the land. So in this case, Yah was going to cause all the cattle in Egypt to die on the next day. The moon was not appointed to declare this set time. The same is true of the Sabbath. The moon is not appointed to declare this set time. It didn't start that way, and it isn't that way now. The third scripture that is misunderstood is Ezekiel 46:1. This scripture simply declares that the gate that looks toward the east shall be shut the 6 working days, but on the Sabbath it shall be opened, and in the day of the new moon it shall be opened. So this scripture correctly understood means that there are two times in which you will open the east gate. Open it on the Sabbath day and open it on the new moon day. If the new moon was the same as the Sabbath, then there would be no need to list them both. But because the new moon is not always on the Sabbath, it is important to tell the people to open it on the Sabbath, even if it's not a new moon day, and open it on the new moon, even if it's not a Sabbath day. So to summarize, there are three problems with a lunar Sabbath. Number one, Yah didn't start it that way. Number two, Yah didn't count weeks with extra days. He counted 7 weeks as 49 days with none extra. Number three, multiple scriptures have been misused to support a lunar Sabbath.